Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, May the 7th. A lot to talk about this morning. We still have an active weather pattern across much of the nation. Looks like a decent amount of rainfall over at least 3/4 of the nation over the next 10 days or so. And this active weather pattern will continue to include some severe weather threats. There was certainly a threat yesterday across the heartland, places like Oklahoma and Texas, that shifts into the Ohio Valley today. And really today and tomorrow there will be a threat of some severe thunderstorm activity throughout much of the eastern half of the nation. Thought we'd start off here before we get to the continental U.S. With a discussion about the latest on the demise of El Nino out across the tropical Pacific Ocean and the soon-to-be developing La Nina that will certainly have an impact on the summer tropical season in the Atlantic Basin. Here is a temperature graph of the central part of the Pacific Ocean. And you can see certainly since around this point right here, there's been a general downward trend. Again, this is the middle of the Pacific Ocean, the tropical Pacific Ocean, what we call the 3.4 region. We kind of separate the El Nino or the ENSO region of the tropical Pacific Ocean into different sections. The one right next to the west coast of South America is called 1.2, and the one out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is 3.4. And again, this is showing the demise of El Nino basically out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and soon to be below normal. It looks like it'll continue like that. And by the time we get to the latter part of this spring and into the summer season, La Nina, or colder than normal conditions, should be the rule out across the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Well, in fact, let's take a quick look here at the sea surface temperature anomalies here on May the 7th. And all this blue out here is starting to expand out into the west, and this is right here. This is the region we were just alluding to, the middle part of the tropical Pacific. This is colder than normal conditions now, really starting to show up here west coast of South America, and again, this will continue to unfold into a La Nina over the next several weeks. And indeed, it looks like a strong La Nina is likely by later this summer going into the fall. That is a favorable change of events here in the Pacific Ocean for tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin. Another favorable sign for tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin. All this warmer than normal water right here across the breeding grounds of the Atlantic Ocean, from the Caribbean Sea largely all the way to the west coast of Africa. So colder than normal conditions in the Pacific Ocean, at least the development of that over the next few weeks, and warmer than normal conditions, which really has been the general rule for quite a few years here in the tropical Atlantic Ocean, both of which are quite favorable. If you go to the ArcfieldWeather.com website, seasonal outlooks, you can see our tropical outlook, and we emphasize these two favorable developments here in terms of the expectation of an above normal season, an active tropical season in the Atlantic Basin, with more hurricanes, more major hurricanes, and more named tropical storms compared to normal. Now, I do not have a record amount of storm systems developing this tropical season, as some forecasts suggest. We'll see how that turns out. There is one negative factor for tropical development or intensification in the Atlantic Basin. Indeed, it's dry air, the potential for dry air coming in off the west coast of Africa out over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. And here is indeed a look at a Sahara desert dry air mass currently. This is for May 7th. Out over the eastern part of the Atlantic Ocean. What we're looking at here is the west coast of Africa, right in this region right here. And this orange area here, largely orange, some yellows, represents some dry air that actually moved basically west off the west coast of Africa. This is originates in the Sahara Desert. It can ride to the west on trade winds this time of the year, and especially over the next few months. And this is generally an inhibiting factor for the development or intensification of tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin. Again, this is the eastern part of the Atlantic Ocean as it currently stands. This, by the way, is from a website from the University of Wisconsin known as CIMSS, a great website where you can find this Sahara Desert air. So this is something that is hard to predict, but I do think it'll play a role in perhaps negating slightly the warmer than normal sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Basin and the colder than normal temperatures expected in the Pacific Ocean. By the way, the colder than normal temperatures in the Pacific Ocean are favorable for tropical activity in the Atlantic because it tends to be correlated with low wind shear in the Atlantic Ocean. That's a favorable thing for tropical activity. El Nino typically has more wind shear showing up in the Atlantic Ocean, and that tends to disrupt the circulation of tropical storms in the Atlantic Basin. So again, La Nina in the Pacific and warm waters in the Atlantic Ocean. But one thing we'll have to watch for over the next few months is the occasional intrusion of dry air off the Sahara Desert in North Africa into the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Well, let's now get back to the continental U.S. Yesterday there was a significant severe weather threat on this part of the nation that shifts to the east today, and the enhanced area, according to NOAA's Storm Prediction Center, out over the Ohio Valley. Indeed, there should be some severe thunderstorm activity in places like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and all the way down into Kentucky as well. And even the chance of some strong storms all the way to the southern mid-Atlantic and the Carolina coastline later in the day and into tonight. And we'll jump ahead here into the day on Wednesday. This is the midweek forecast map and a continuation of a large area for possibility of some severe weather. This particular map, again, is for Wednesday and Wednesday night, and it extends all the way to the eastern seaboard with a threat, but the biggest threat looks like it'll be right over the middle Mississippi Valley, the Tennessee Valley regions on Wednesday, and we go out another 24 hours, even a continuation of some severe weather threat on Thursday out across the eastern states and the southern states, really anywhere from the northern Gulf region up across the eastern seaboard during the day on Thursday. So quite an active time period here today, tonight, tomorrow, and even into the day on Thursday, where there certainly it's a threat for strong to severe thunderstorms pretty much anywhere in the eastern half of the nation. Now, we've certainly talked about one of the culprits for the active weather pattern and the potential for severe weather as we have arrived here into the month of May. And that is the continuation of intrusions of colder than normal air masses. It just develops a clash zone across the continental U.S. with typically this time of the year warm and humid air flowing northward out of the Gulf of Mexico right into the Mississippi Valley or the Ohio Valley, for example, and colder air across the western U.S. driving to the south and east helps set up that clash zone or battle zone that leads to the possibility of severe weather. In fact, we'll just walk through this forecast set of forecast maps at the 850 millibar level for temperature anomalies using the 0Z run of the GFS from today, Tuesday, May the 7th, going forward for several days. And again, notice the dichotomy here with a lot of cold air to the north and west, a lot of warm air to the south and east. This is by late Thursday, and on that particular day, remember we saw the severe weather possibility across the northern Gulf region up along the eastern seaboard. And again, that is because of this kind of a pattern here with colder air is dropping to the south and east, and warm air from the Gulf of Mexico continues to flow to the north and west, sets up this battle zone region, and that slides into the eastern third of the nation by the time we get to late Thursday night. We'll go out forward in time here, and that colder air moves into the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., following the passage of a strong cold front, So the days of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday will be cooler than normal in much of the eastern third of the nation. Here we are on Saturday morning. Look at that. Much of the eastern half of the nation still below normal conditions, warmer than normal out across the northwestern states. And we'll go out a couple more days here. It's very impressive. Chilly air mass here for this time of the year. This is Mother's Day. Midday on Mother's Day, Sunday, a cool Mother's Day for much of the eastern half of the nation. Warmer than normal again out across the Pacific Northwest. We'll go out a couple more days next Monday. And finally, a week from today, still some cold air up across the Hudson Bay region of Canada. That's colder than normal air, and it kind of spills out into the mid-Atlantic northeast U.S. So continuation of some chilly air masses relative to normal coming out of Canada into the U.S. will maintain this active weather pattern at least for another week or so, and with that, severe weather threats across the middle of the country and over the next few days, the eastern half of the country. Well, one other sign of an active weather pattern over the next week or so, quick look here at the total precipitation amounts over the next 10 days. This is from this morning, Monday morning, all the way out to the end of next week, Friday, May 17th. And virtually the entire country gets hit by some rainfall. Maybe the exception will be the southwestern states, which again is rather typical for this time of the year, that they are relatively dry. Later on in the summer season, they get some moisture too, with a kind of a monsoonal flow of air, moist air moving in off the Pacific Ocean into the southwestern states, and some moist air can flow into the southwestern states from the Gulf of Mexico. They get some afternoon and evening thunderstorms, a monsoonal type of activity later on in the summer season. But for the next 10 days, relatively dry across the southwestern U.S. But the rest of the nation, a decent amount of rainfall. Anything in purple here shows up as 2 inches plus, and this kind of a rain wet pattern over the next 10 days will include, again, some severe weather threats, primarily from the eastern 2/3 of the nation here over the next 5 or 10 days or so. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps, again using the 0Z run of the GFS. Cold enough for snow up across southeastern Canada. Strong low pressure out over the northern plains, and some decent amount of rainfall and embedded thunderstorms, and some of those strong as we begin the day here on Tuesday, May the 7th. Let's move forward here. This area of showers slides to the east and overnight into the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. A good chance of showers. Again, notice still cold enough for snow across some of those northern Rockies, and still some significant accumulating snow out across the Rocky Mountain states over the next 5 or 10 days or so. That includes the Sierra Nevada mountains of eastern California. Let's now go into midday on Wednesday, late Wednesday, and it has a chance to become very warm and humid on Wednesday afternoon, perhaps the most summer-like day of the year so far. In places like DC, probably highs of 85 to 90, but higher dew points than we've been accustomed to. So warm and humid on Wednesday in that DC, perhaps Philadelphia area, maybe even into New York City as well. And then we'll have to monitor this system. A strong low pressure area pushes out of the upper Midwest into the northern mid-Atlantic region on Thursday. A good chance for some rain, and this will have a strong cold frontal system on its trailing side here as well, and we'll see that cold front slide across the eastern states and usher in quite cool air for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Earlier we talked about Mother's Day being quite chilly relative to normal for this time of the year, below normal temperatures for Sunday, May the 12th, and that is all following the passage of this cold frontal system, at which time right here it's located right in this region here late Thursday night going into Friday morning, and there's some cool air behind that will again cool things down in the mid-Atlantic region for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and a lot of rainfall down across the Gulf region. Again, some of this possibly on the severe side later Thursday night going into the day on Friday. Move ahead a little bit in time. It's still quite an active weather pattern multiple systems impacting the eastern states by the time we get to the early part of the upcoming weekend. And again, there will be a cooler than normal air mass dominating the scene across the eastern half of the nation by the early part of the weekend. Dry in the southwestern states, and at this particular time, dry throughout the western states as we begin the upcoming weekend. So that's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.